Why does a shift in boundaries trigger conflict? Sometimes, conflict arrives very quickly, not because the situation itself is large, but because some boundary has been touched. It happened during a price negotiation in a courtyard. The pig had already been inspected. People walked around it several times, checking the teeth, checking the fat. Everything looked more or less acceptable. The price negotiation had already reached the end. Only a small difference remained. But nobody was in a hurry. Several people stood together. Some squatted down. Some stood smoking. The owner made tea for everyone. People talked about pigs. Talked about life, too. Someone passed cigarettes around. Someone slowly blew smoke rings into the air. That kind of atmosphere usually ends in a deal, and just before the price was settled, another person arrived outside the courtyard. He was from the neighboring village, had returned from the county town. We had met several times before, exchanged greetings before, too. He did not walk inside, only stood nearby, watching. First, he asked about the current pig prices, and only after hearing the answer did he speak again. This pig doesn't really look worth that price. The voice was not loud, almost like he was speaking to himself. But the moment that sentence appeared, the air in the courtyard changed instantly. The people who had still been discussing price. All paused briefly. Nobody responded. The pig owner looked at him once. His face tightened immediately. His voice rose instantly. "What does that have to do with you?" The response came fast, and the tone turned hard immediately. The distance between the two men started shrinking. Their words that started pushing forward. Just moments earlier, everyone had still been discussing pigs. Now, nobody looked at the pig anymore. Nobody looked at the price anymore. The voices started pressing upward layer by layer. The movements in their hands also started tightening. Someone removed the cigarette from his mouth, threw it onto the ground, then crushed it hard under his shoe. Others started stepping backward slightly, and the whole atmosphere started moving forward. Within only a few sentences, it already felt like people might start fighting. I stepped in, pulled them apart, slowly. The courtyard became quiet again. But that moment had already happened. Later, I kept replaying what had just happened. What truly changed was no longer those few dozen when. Originally, who was negotiating? Who was deciding? Who had the right to speak? All of that had been stable. People nearby could listen, could watch, but they would not directly step in. But once that sentence appeared, that stability started loosening. The pig owner's face tightened instantly. His words pushed back immediately, not because that sentence itself was especially serious, but because someone had suddenly crossed the original boundary, and by the end, nobody was looking at the pig anymore. Nobody cared about the price anymore. The movements had already appeared. The voices had already pushed upward, as if only by sealing that opening again could the whole situation return to stability. And only later did I begin realizing something. Many conflicts are not caused by the event itself. They happen because a previously stable position has started being touched by someone else. And if that is true, then why do people need boundaries?